Hello, my beautiful family of bloomers. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing great. I'm doing well myself. I started off my week a little bit exhausted from a weekend travel with family, but I'm kind of back into my routine. I feel a lot stronger and excited to be here so that we can continue to share some good stuff. In my previous video, I was sharing with you the reasons why you should not be ashamed of your scars, and it was my intention to kind of build up on that in the next video, giving you some practical ways you can turn that ugly scar into a beautiful victory story. But somebody reached out to me and asked a question, or let me say expressed a concern that made me feel like I think I want to address this first before we move on. She said she's been struggling with this belief that she doesn't have a story to tell, and this has really been holding her back from pursuing some things she feels in her heart to do. And the reason for this belief is because she was surrounded by people who made her feel that she was not scarred enough to have a story worth telling. And this just reminded me of a video I had watched a while back. I tried to look for it, I was unable to find, but in this video, this girl is explaining how she had started to commit a lot of crimes in school, at home, and she was just doing everything to attract some drama in her life. Why? Because she felt like she was surrounded by kids who had a story. Right? Kids from abusive homes, homeless kids, kids that were on drug, alcoholism, kids with history of sexual abuse, kids that were even physically or mentally challenged. And so this was her own way of trying to fit in or create a story that was worth telling. So this video of today may not follow my usual format. It's just going to be me sharing with you my own opinion about this aspect of feeling that you do not have a story because you have not been deeply scarred, or you do not have some dramatic experiences in your past. And I would really appreciate it if you share with me your own opinion on the subject matter in the comment section below. But before you do, please watch this video till the end, because I believe what I will share here will not only benefit those who feel this way, but it will equally help those who think they have a story to understand how they can tell it in a way that is compelling and in a way that impacts lives. My opinion is that we all have a story to tell. My story is different from your story. I may not understand your story, and you may not even understand mine, and it's perfectly fine, because maybe my story is not meant to impact you and yours is not meant to create an impact in my life, maybe in the person sitting right next to me. But the bottom line is that we all have a story. And again, when we say we all have a story, the first thing that comes into our minds is that we all have some dramatic thing that has happened to us, right? We think that a compelling story should be that one that talks about surviving rape and sexual abuse, or surviving an abusive relationship, loss and grief, surviving war and pain, just some really deep tragic things that people go through. For example, the story of, say, a homeless kid who made it to college may sound way more compelling than the story about the power of hard work coming from a regular kid who grew up in a loving family who has succeeded out of college. And as in the same way, the story of maybe a couple, the challenges that they face raising up kids in a fast-paced world may not be as compelling as the story of that single mom struggling to make ends meet while raising up 5 kids. But it's important to note that that dramatic experience in itself is not necessarily what will make your story compelling, or will impact the lives of others, or will even guide you onto that path where you pursue your purpose in life. And please, this is the part where I really wish that we listen carefully as I explain. Have you ever watched a movie that has action, comedy, romance, even some horror, and at the end of this movie you feel like, oh my goodness, what a waste of my time? And on the other hand, you watch another movie that is just in one location. There's this movie I've watched over and over, just in one room, and your eyes are glued to the screen until it's over, and then even days after, it leaves something with you. This is just to tell you that it's not the many things that are going on in this story that makes it compelling. Now, I'm going to use a practical example to make this clearer. I don't really want some people to misunderstand the point that I'm trying to make. So let me use an everyday example. Now, let's look at the lives of 4 people who grew up orphans or homeless. The first person grows up to be this big business person who is super generous. Where is this generosity coming from? Maybe because they learned that aspect of generosity during their journey. They saw the influence or the power of an act of kindness. They saw that somebody's act of kindness used to determine if I go to bed hungry or not. And that is what they take out of their story. And now the people in their lives are benefiting from their generosity. Their business may have nothing to do with orphans. You even have the second person who can grow up to just be this person who is great at connecting with people, creating relationships, nurturing their relationships, really caring for it. They're just this trustworthy kind of person. And again, boom, is coming from their backstory. Maybe during their journey as an orphan or homeless child, they went through a lot of betrayals, and maybe they had another one or two people that were really trustworthy, and that made a difference in their lives. So now they know the importance of having a trustworthy friend, and that is who they want to be with the people around them. Now the people surrounding them are benefiting. Now the third person may grow up with this big heart of empathy and say that I do not want to see another orphan go through what I went through. And so they choose to maybe create a foundation or an orphanage where other orphans can get help. But then they may even be the fourth person who chooses not to identify themselves with their story. Like, I don't want anybody to know I was ever an orphan. They just don't want to associate themselves with that story. Have you ever seen somebody who was into something, they came out of it, and all of a sudden they see another person in it and they're like, they just don't want to have anything to do with that story. Again, this takes us to the video I shared last week where people are ashamed of their scar. Maybe they're still healing. They have not yet come to that place where they see any good, any benefit in that story. And so because that has not even happened to them, there's no way that they can use that story to impact the lives of others. Now, why do I share with you these 4 scenarios? I just want you to see that it is not necessarily the sum of all the events and things you've gone through that makes your story compelling. It is what you allow that experience to do or not do in you that makes that story compelling and creates impact in the lives of others. Right now, I know of a comedian who talks a lot, uses a lot her story as a homeless lady to bring it in her comedy, right? Now, what is making her succeed? What is making her succeed as a comedian? It's not necessarily her story. And that is why I made that comment that your dramatic story does not necessarily mean that it will put you on the path of your purpose in life. The reason why people listen to her and laugh is not necessarily because she has an orphan story. There are a lot of people who have orphan stories out there, but they're not funny. It's because she has a funny bone in there. So it is her talent, but she is drawing from her story to make sense of even that talent that she has at the moment. I don't know if I'm really making sense, but it's what you allow that experience to do or not do in your life that makes it compelling and can impact the life of another person. We all have a story, but if you have to allow that story to impact you first, and then how you tell it will create an impact in another person's life. Now, saying that we all have a story to tell is not me trying to make light of the fact that there are some people who have gone through unimaginable things in life. That is just the truth. Some people have been through certain things, and that is why some people are at a different level of growth and maturity than others. Certain things they can handle that others cannot handle, because let me tell you, struggle brings a lot of growth and development. You see somebody who is so resilient, persistent, risk-taking, they have a lot of problem-solving skills, they know how to be patient and all of that. It's because of the things that they have been through. Read 2 Corinthians chapter 1, 3-4. We are told here that this God of all comfort, He comforts us through our struggles, our trials, so that we, with the same measure of comfort that we have received, we will comfort another. This tells me 2 things. We all have received some level of comfort. Different measures, but we have received some level of comfort, which means we all have a story. And now we are to comfort others with the same measure of comfort we have received, and that is our story creating impact in the lives of others. I always say that we live in this fallen world where There will be trials and tribulations, both big and small. And many times God allows us to go through these things so we get to know Him. He's revealed to us. We get to need Him and see His manifestation in our lives. We get to see His grace and mercy, His forgiveness, His comfort in the time of pain. We get to see His protection and provision. And the measure with which we receive these things is the measure with which we are able to reach out to others. You know, it's said that where there is sin, grace much more abounds. And to him who has been forgiven much, they also tend to forgive much. So we all have a story to tell. But in all our different stories, both big and small, we come down to this one universal story, which is, once I was lost, but now I am found. So we have the story of grace and mercy and God's faithfulness to tell the nation. So if you still feel that you do not have a story, not because of the absence of drama in your life, but because up till now you have not been living your life intentionally, like putting meaning and purpose behind everything you do, then the good news is that there is still room for more to be added to your story. There is more to your story. You are still able to live an extraordinary life and to create impact in the lives of others. And when I say that you're still able to live an extraordinary life, I do not necessarily mean a larger than life, kind of living. Whether your life is simple or is grand, what makes your story compelling, like I said earlier, is the impact that it creates in the lives of others. Jesus lived a simple life, but his life was not ordinary. He had an extraordinary life. And that extraordinary side of him was felt when people came around him, when they experienced him, right? In his message, in the way he treated people, in the way he walked with people. People saw that extraordinary side of him. They say, what manner of man is this? So you are able to live a life that creates impact. So you have a story. Find out what that story is. Allow it to impact your life first. And then go tell it on the mountains, over the hills, and everywhere. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next.